We're back with the duo from Singapore. We're talking about Smoove and the journey of Smoove, a startup that may be new to some of you, but hopefully this is a journey that you might want to be part of in many different formats. So my name's Graham Brown. This is Pitchdeck Asia. We showcase some of the most interesting and exciting startups in Asia. So I'm joined by two of my esteemed guests from Smoove. We've got Michael Tan and Derek Yo joining us in the virtual studio today. Gentlemen, welcome to Pitch Deck Asia.
Thank you.
Thank you, Graham.
In Singapore, and you're both local Singaporean lads. What's the story? You're both brought up here. Where were you educated? Maybe Derek, you can talk a little bit about that first, a bit of backstory on yourself.
Sure. Actually, my parents in the 60s went to Australia. They studied there, they got married, they worked there. And so I was actually born in Melbourne, in Australia.
Okay.
But I was brought up, they came back when I was just 6 months old. So I was actually entirely brought up in Singapore. But I did my university in Australia. And I did a year in the UK afterwards for my master's. But most of my career has actually been in Singapore, but doing regional kind of roles. Yeah, so that's kind of a quick summary.
Yeah, it's a good summary as well. Especially that's going to lead us into what we're talking about today and the sector that we're talking about as well. Michael, yourself, what's the story?
Okay, Derek and I actually came from the same school, so we miss each other, but we're still very proud alumni of the same school. And I went to school university in the US, so got back and to Singapore and got my first job actually in Beijing. So I spent most of my career actually in the Greater China region. So got back to Singapore maybe like 5 years back, and in one of those classmates gatherings, I met Derek, and then together with one of my other co-founders, we got together and tried to do something together.
So I noticed on your resume is that you're actually in Beijing. You're not a sort of a latecomer. A lot of people have moved to China in recent years, haven't they, because of the tech boom? But you were there quite early, weren't you?
1994.
Yeah, exactly. That was before, China was a thing when we're talking about tech and startups, right? It was a long before.
Yeah, way before that. So I think back in those days, they were trying to attract a lot of foreigner and a lot of foreign investments into China. So that was way before the boom time. So I think the first 10 years I was there, the businesses that I was involved in, nobody made money.
Yeah,
so it's just trying to plant a flag and then trying to establish a presence there in China in the early days. Money burning time, yeah.
Exactly. A lot of lessons learned the hard way, I bet, as well.
So yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they didn't have the kind of capital that they have these days as well. So it was a lot more of a grind, I bet, for the companies involved in China back then. So this sort of leads us up into the startup we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about Smoove. So there's a bit of a backstory there, which I think sort of gives it a bit of a flavor as to why you are the right guys for this. So Derek, help us understand, before we jump into the pitch deck, what is Smoove?
So I think one thing about Smoove is that we, having traveled extensively throughout Asia, and of course with Michael working in China previously, we've come to understand that along the whole customer journey of a traveler, especially for people coming out of China, there are a lot of different points along the journey in which perhaps there are solutions or people that are addressing some of those, but actually no one person has actually come together to bring all these into one single place. And I think that's what we are unique in terms of identifying the whole customer journey, plugging some pain points, and then making the journey a smooth one, hence the name, a seamless kind of experience in which the traveling can really be experienced, without all the hassles of the little things that need to be done pre, post, or in the destination. That kind of idea. Yeah.
Got it. So it's aimed at Chinese travelers from mainland China, right? That's how I understand it. We're going to have a look at the pitch deck now. It's really interesting because obviously where we are today with the travel market. So there's a few questions I've got to ask you about that. But also this sort of macro trend about the Chinese middle class. You're backing a wave which is only getting a lot bigger. I mean, you look at the latest data from the Future of Asia report by McKinsey, they're saying 2/3 of the world's middle class will be living in Asia by the end of this decade. I mean, those numbers are phenomenal. And a big chunk of that is China as well. So obviously, this is a growing market. And what you've identified is probably a number of pain points in this market, i.e., there is a real discontinuity in that consumer journey, that traveler's journey, literally, and with all the digital assets as well. So let's sort of dive in. Let's get the pitch deck up, and if you look at slide 2, this is a basic definition of what Smoove is: helping tourists plan and manage their travel. And let's jump to the slide 7, where we can actually see the market that you're in, because I like to understand, when we look at pitch decks, the size of the problem that you're solving effectively. What are you seeing now? So put this into context, and bear in mind, some people might be listening to this, so they can't see this data, Derek. So tell us what the key headline stats are for the Chinese tourist markets. And also, I think the follow-on question is, does this make sense right now in the middle of the pandemic, when travel seems to be something that is, obviously mainly just focused on domestic tourism in China, but, international travel seems to have a question mark over it right now. So start with the top level stats. What do we need to know about Chinese tourism?
So I think one of the things that we definitely want to tap on is, as you say, the big middle class that is coming out of China. I mean, for so many years, the Chinese have been, in a sense, internally building up their wealth. They've also been getting to know the world that's around them. And we've seen wave after wave of Chinese tourists that have come out to travel all around the world. And actually, Singapore is one of the top destinations. Although we're such a small little country, we're one of the top destinations for Chinese tourists coming out when they are traveling. So, and when they come and when they travel, these tourists spend a lot of money, actually. I used to work in STV, in the Singapore Tourism Board, and one of the key sort of metrics that we like to look at is what we call tourism receipts, in which when a tourist comes here, they spend money on the hotel, on travel, obviously on food and dining, buying souvenirs, going to an attraction, or buying a sporting event, etc. So that's one of the metrics that we are very, very keen to look at. So for the Chinese tourists coming to Singapore, on average, each of them spend about probably close to $2,000 per person. So what we're saying is, as Smoove, our company, what we're trying to do is capture a little portion of that spend by giving them a truly seamless experience, in which then we can tap on some of these things and grow, obviously, even the tourism spend. Because if they find it more convenient to buy something or to experience something, then it's likely that they will, make the purchase, or make the purchase decision an easier one, or less friction kind of thing. So last year, for example, there were some 400 million outbound trips made by Chinese tourists out of China. And that's, there was 150, but that is set to grow to something like about 400 by the year 2030. Of course, in today's context, there is a pandemic around us. But by every single study that we've seen, and of course, just anecdotally talking to people, everyone just can't wait for this thing to be deeper. And for us to get back to some sense of normalcy, and we're not talking about the so-called new normal, but really the normal thing, as in people traveling to experience different cultures and different sceneries and food and whatever kind of thing. And in fact, in the recent Golden Week holiday in China, we saw the pent-up demand of travel in China. Some of these people, because there's nowhere else to go, all headed straight to Hainan Island. So I have a friend who works in the Marriott Hotel, and he said that every single hotel room in Hainan was completely booked out, and nobody could get a room. So everyone was traveling to these resort places because there's nowhere else to go and nothing else they could do. So we believe that at this time, it's actually a very, very good time in which we can build up our app and our experience so that when the demand comes back, which we think will happen in probably 9 months, 6 months, or maybe even a year, there will be this market and actually be a huge wave. And I think Singapore is actually in a very good place to tap on this because we are one of those countries which has handled the pandemic quite responsibly, I would say. And our numbers are very well in check. And we don't have a second, third wave coming on. So I think that's something that we will benefit from in terms of receiving this wave of Chinese tourists when they come out again.
There's been a few media articles covering Golden Week, and there's this phenomenon called revenge tourism as well. I don't know if you've been... I mean, for those who aren't sort of in your industry, is this what we're talking about? There's sort of pent-up demand inside China, and now they're taking revenge on the fact that they've been locked up for so many months, and now they're going to go and spend all their money.
In fact, this revenge sort of tag was also used for revenge shopping. So after the lockdown in April, when even within China, when the lockdown sort of eased, the sales in luxury goods and just shopping in key cities like Shanghai and Beijing went absolutely through the roof. So people were just revenge shopping as well. So I think it's just a matter of how people really itching to do something, and traveling has always been throughout history something that we've always wanted to do, to explore. I mean, that's where Christopher Columbus went somewhere, that's where Marco Polo went somewhere. I mean, that's in our DNA, can I say. So I think it will be restored. It's just a matter of time. And what we want to do is make it so seamless for them and so attractive that we're going to receive a huge boost, and we're going to ride that wave, at least for the next few years.
Got it. So before we talk about the platform and the solutions that you have, can we build a pen profile, if you like, using advertising speak, of who these Chinese tourists are? Because you've both got sort of different experiences. Michael, having worked in the mainland for, from pre-tourism era, I'm sure as well. So you've seen probably waves of tourists, like different generations. They tend to sort of come in different characters, where you have maybe the first wave of tourists all tour as a group, and they're sort of from tier 1 cities. And then you now sort of see a later wave where you get these tourists who are still touring as a group, but they come from tier 2 cities, so they dress differently and so on. What's going on at the moment? What's the pen profile of Chinese tourists coming to Singapore, or, pre-pandemic, and also what you expect post-pandemic? Are they tours? Are they, what parts of China are they coming from? And give us an idea of what they're doing whilst they're here.
I think you've correctly identified the kind of waves that have occurred so far. So these days, or just pre-pandemic, there's still actually kind of two a bit more distinct kind of travelers. So yes, there are the more sophisticated travelers coming out of your first and tier cities, or first, second tier cities. And they now are less inclined to be just, catching a big coach and going with a big tour group. There's more likely for them to be what we call free independent travelers, or FITs. Maybe in a small group, maybe in a family, or maybe just a couple of friends coming together. But with the third, fourth tier cities, there will still probably be some more of these tourists who haven't yet explored outside of China to come to somewhere like Singapore. So there's still probably two types, if I can call them big group types of travelers that are coming here. Yes.
So even that second wave as well, that is probably as large as the first one, even though, economically they may have less money coming from tier 2, 3, 4 cities. The numbers are just phenomenal. And they're touring in groups as well. Still, as you say, it's their first time. And so maybe they reach out for somebody who can create that more of a seamless experience for them. So let's have a look. If we can get the pitch deck up on slide 10, there's an interesting landscape that you've built. So what I'm going to ask you is help us describe the travel solutions landscape, if you will. You've built this quadrant as well, which is talking about how, I suppose, tourists from China are using different apps, and then also where you fit into this based on the fact that what is it that they're not doing, and what are you doing that these platforms are doing, or do you sync with these platforms? Do you plug in? So help us understand the whole landscape of apps for Chinese tourists first, and then let's dive into yours.
Okay. If I can say, some of the more familiar apps that most people would be, have seen would be, for example, say Alipay, WeChat, and WeChat Pay, and for specifically for Chinese, and so that those apps, whether you are actually Chinese or Singaporean, you would know those two. Those are very, very familiar with a lot of people. But for the Chinese, they have other apps in which maybe are not so popular in Singapore, because they are specifically targeted at Chinese, the Chinese population. So people like Ma Feng Wo is one, Ctrip, Xiao Hongshu. So some of these different apps which occupy, and if you can, so in the quadrant that we've actually developed there, so some of these apps take care of what is known as the payment or transactional type of part of the journey. So if you want to buy something and you want to pay, you probably whip up your phone and pay with your Alipay, or you pay with your WeChat Pay. Maybe if you wanted some information about a certain place and you wanted inspiration, you might look at Xiao Hongshu, which is kind of like an Instagram equivalent kind of thing. So you might go in there and look at some pictures or images, or you might look at some of the other apps in which you can plan and buy your tickets. For example, like Ctrip, you can book a hotel, buy your plane ticket to come to Singapore. So each of them has some part of the customer journey down pat, and a lot of them do them very well at a very deep level. But there is no one app currently that actually ties pretty much all of these different things together. So you can have an app that gives you inspiration. You can have an app that possibly gives you ideas for itinerary. You can have an app that you can pay something with. You can have an app in which you can get some insights into the local scene. But there isn't one app that does all of these things in one place, and that's where we come in. So we are an app that actually helps you in the pre-planning process, where we give you ideas, inspiration. With the content that we have, the images that we have, we're going to have some gorgeous, awesome sort of content in there, and images to inspire people. And then when you think about getting here, so what are the kind of itineraries that you want to create? What are the things that you really do want to see? So according to your interests, we can then help you in terms of creating an itinerary that will be suited to what you want to do. Also, we'll give suggestions. These are things that people similar to you have bought. You may be like an Amazon recommendation engine. So someone like you has gone to see this, or has bought this, or they said that this was really good, kind of thing. So we'll have those kinds of engines sitting behind as well. And then if you want to go, so we've given you an inspiration, and you say, for example, you want to go to the Gardens by the Bay, then we'll tell you within our app how to get there from where you are. So we will have a navigation sort of portion of the app which tells you how to get there. Maybe it's by taxi, maybe it's by bus or MRT. And then how about, would you like to book a ticket for the attraction? And then you can actually purchase the ticket through the app. And then when you get there, we will give you ideas about how you can maximize your time there. And afterwards, of course, you can share your experience on the app so that other people can actually benefit from it. So once enough users do this as well, number one, we're going to have a whole lot of user-generated content. And number two, this will feed into our AI, our artificial intelligence engine, which will then better capture all this information and then pass it out to future people who are looking for similar inspiration. So something like that.
Got it. You've got a case study in your pitch deck. Maybe we can have a look at it from that perspective, because that gives us an idea of how this sort of journey works together. I'll flash up a number of slides, and then you can tell us where you want to start with this. So I'm going to do this in a non-sequential order. In slide 11, you have effectively what is the journey of, a traveler, and you talked about all those kind of different touch points that they have. Like, they go to Gardens by the Bay, and then maybe they want to see the light show, and then maybe they want to eat at wherever it may be around there. Okay, so that's the sort of typical. It's very fragmented. And then you've also got the case study, which I think is with T-Union, correct? If we have to look at slides 4 and 6. And maybe we can just look at slide 4 first. Go up to that one. So you basically, this is an example of how you're building this pre, in, and post journey. So you break it down, I guess, like the research that happens beforehand, the booking, what happens when you're there, and then how you're sharing it afterwards, which is a key part of this as well, isn't it? How you're then giving them a platform and a megaphone to share all this with their friends. Okay, so the question I'll ask is, how does this actual app work in China? Do you sit on top of the WeChat platform? Help us understand it technically first, and then we'll sort of dive in and look at how all this works.
So one of our key partners for this project is the China T-Union. So T-Union is the equivalent of Singapore's kind of like our EZ-Link. So they actually have a whole bunch of it's like a platform in which people use to pay for their traveling transport, local transport in China. Currently, in every city in China, they kind of have their own bus companies or MRTs, and you have to have a local transport card, so to speak. So if you're in Beijing, you have a Beijing card. In Shanghai, you have one. So China T-Union is going to, in the next year, basically standardize all these systems so that every one of them are going to sit on this one common platform. So they may have a local component to it, but all of them are going to have a common platform, which is China's T-Union. So China T-Union is our strategic partner in this project. And part of our cooperation is that we will be able to tap on all the users that China T-Union has. So we're talking of millions of users that already have the China T-Union card and are familiar with China T-Union. So it's a matter of telling these guys who are familiar with China T-Union in China to say, hey, we now have an app, and it's a native standalone app. So we're not sitting on a WeChat platform that you can use when you go to somewhere like, say, Singapore. So at this first stage, we are, of course, launching in Singapore. But subsequently, we could easily replicate this in Malaysia, in Thailand, in Indonesia, throughout Southeast Asia.
Right.
So that's where it is.
What's the problem now when because I would ask, if I was looking at this, and, you both know the nature of the Chinese market is that, whether it's Meituan or it's Tencent, their sort of mindset is to own the whole journey. They'll start by food delivery, and then, they'll add in another service and another service until you've got this completely, enveloping Uber app. So when you look at travel, for example, I know Alibaba have got Fliggy, and you've got all these platforms emerging. Is the issue that they're not here? Is the issue because when they come to Singapore that their sort of native ecosystem kind of breaks down a little bit? Or is it just because they're not thinking in those terms? Why is it that you can solve this and somebody hasn't thought of this yet in China? What's that sort of advantage that you have?
I don't know, Michael, would you want to jump in on this particular question?
Okay, sure. So, Graham, you're totally correct. So, people like Ctrip or even Ma Fengwo or people like Tunio, they've been around for many years. So, but the key thing is they are very focused on doing one thing, which is the big ticket items, the airfares and the hotel. So, I think those things translate into revenue faster. But what these guys are not able to do is to be able to provide what we call in-journey services. So you know what they do is they sell you the air tickets, they sell the hotels, and then when you land a destination, okay, sorry dude, you're on your own. So they don't take care of that, because those things will require a lot of information. So in China right now, a lot of people are leveraging on UGC, so letting users generate contents that can be useful for other users. So those things are what we call, you know, blind leading the blind. So from our perspective, we want to users to be able to get content from a local friend. So that's where we're coming from. So from a local perspective, so we're I would say that we are your local companion. So that's the way the angle that we're coming in from a local perspective. So a local will be able to tell you where to have a good, say, Hainan chicken rice or good, say, char kway teow, whatever. Those things that are more local rather than touristy, I would say, recommendations. So that's where we're coming in from. That's the angle that we are targeting. And I think no matter how big Ctrip is or Ma Feng Wo or Tunio, this is something which is not interesting because it requires a lot of input and a lot of say local groundwork which
On the
they are not
ground,
able
yeah.
to do. Yeah. So that's where we are, and that's our key point of differentiation.
I always thought like the large macro opportunities in this decade, especially when you look at, you know, the Asian middle class, are those people that are boundaryless, that operate between markets and bridge markets. And it's easier said than done because, like you say, for a Chinese platform, the returns domestically are so high, and it's a very comfortable market for them. They can make a lot of money domestically and get that market worked out. But to send somebody to Singapore and spend time there and, like, you know, really understand the locals, it's beyond their sort of comfort zone. So really where the missing links are in that sort of macro middle class opportunity are people who sort of understand both markets and can operate between them. And I think that's not just having technology, but it's also a cultural thing as well. And that's why, you know, with Derek and Michael, is that with your backgrounds, that's something that I would have thought a lot of people in China don't have. Like, they can kind of understand the need of a Chinese customer, and they can understand the need of a Singaporean, you know, retailer, or they can understand all these kind of different perspectives. And really, that's kind of where these large platforms, I feel, break down. Like, even if you look, for example, at the payment systems, they're really good domestically, but when they start taking them globally, you know, it becomes a lot harder for these companies to make progress. And so I feel like, you know, you have this opportunity, these gaps effectively that operate in the market, because it's so profitable for Ctrip, or so profitable for all those sort of Tencent type platforms in China, just to focus on that market, just to focus locally. So it's an interesting opportunity, I feel, for you. And I feel that, you know, the challenge now is how do you validate this, because you are operating between multiple markets. You know, you have to not only build one side of the market here in Singapore, but you've also got to reach out to those customers in China as well. So tell us a little bit about the plan for the rollout here. Where are you with staging now? Where are you going to be next year? And what are your milestones and goalposts with this validation?
Okay, I think just dialing back a little bit and responding to what you said earlier, I think you're completely right. And Singapore, I think, historically has occupied a very strategic location, not just physically and geographically, but also in terms of, you know, at a kind of intellectual level, because we really stand at the kind of inflection point between really truly Asian sort of and also being very, very Western. And we also have a fantastic reputation with China in terms of, you know, the government relationship, but also being a very, very safe and easy to travel kind of destination for a lot of Chinese tourists. But as you said, many of these guys operating out of China may not, whatever they have may not translate so well outside. And certainly they don't have that local input. It's difficult for them to really give the Chinese tourists a very, very authentic experience when they come here, or for that matter, to Malaysia or to wherever else that they go to. So I think this is where we are going to hopefully differentiate ourselves. We are going to be a very, very content-rich platform where we do provide very genuine, authentic experiences in which these tourists and more of them are going to appreciate, because it's not just about, can I just have a very good chicken rice or whatever kind of thing, but it's how do I get there? Why is it good? Why is it that the locals like it? And is it something that that would suit a Chinese sort of a tourist taste kind of thing? Okay, in terms of where we are now, we are frantically, so speaking to that, we are generating this content even as we speak. So we have a lot of people on the ground, writing stuff, doing stuff that we think will be interesting. We're validating it, we are reviewing it, we are editing and re-editing, we're checking our sources, we are seeing, are these things the things that are really going to resonate? And are these things the things that will really translate to people wanting to come to our platform to find out more? And then they can be then part of our whole ecosystem. So we are at a content building stage on one side. Secondly, on the actual app, we're also working very hard to produce a really fantastic app that will be easy to use, simple, and basically something that you can bring along with you as a companion, as Michael mentioned earlier. We really want this app to be like a silent companion, but someone you can just immediately consult if you need something, or you want to go somewhere, or you want to find out something, and we will be able to give you that. I mean, something so simple, for example, as navigation. For most Chinese coming out of China, they can't even install Google Maps on their phone. Yeah. So how are they going to get around? I mean, with that kind of thing. So that is already one immediate pain point that we're going to solve. We're going to have a full-fledged 3D map generated, 3D map kind of navigation system where you really can find stuff, and we can actually point you to other things that are near you. We can even push promotion deals that people might be interested. People like you might be interested in, either because of your previous purchase or maybe because of people similar to you, that kind of thing. So we're working on the app development piece. We're also working on the content piece. In terms of actual raw, we are hoping by the end of this year, we'll have kind of like a version 0.5, where there will be a whole bunch of content. And then we are going to use that obviously to do some testing, etc. We're going to have a pretty good version of the app probably by the middle of next year, or somewhere around there. And we are also expecting by then, hopefully, some tourist travelers to start coming, so that we can
it has to
start seeing how people interact with the app, and how it's going to really work, and how whether it's going to where are things that we need to tweak, where are things we need to add or subtract or whatever kind of thing.
What's the first sort of validation that you'll be doing with 0.5? What's the hypothesis you're testing? Is it that will people pay for the app? Is it that retailers will pay to advertise? Is it what sort of one of those key validations that you can share with us?
Okay, so one of the validations would be how would people interact with the app? So I think that's one key thing. So a lot of people may have a fantastic content-rich or feature-rich app. There are many apps out there like that, but people find it clunky to use. People just, it's not intuitive. It's not I guess easy to navigate. So I think one first thing that we must want to validate would be the UI and the UX on how users are going to interact with the app. So we are going to really monitor how people swap between pages, how they're going to find out things or not find things, etc. So that will be one key validation. Then of course we're going to test a couple of features. It won't be the full feature list, but some of the features that we are going to push up first. So some of those we're also going to test.
It's going to be one of those, I think at the early days, it's going to be like that one thing it does that people use it for? Because you've probably got a potential feature list of 100 different things, that a shopping list of what people want.
Don't tell that to my product guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's your job. Is to kind of like, okay, you've got 100, we're just going to focus on this one, right? I mean, that's the challenge any startup founder faces, right? I would, I'm really fascinated by what you're doing, and I know I haven't asked you, but just to get it out of the way, how does it make money? And then I want to talk a little bit about sort of a bit more of the backstory. But what's the model? Is that being validated now? Is it going to be driven by advertising? Is it driven by a subscription model? How does it work?
So there's a couple of revenue streams. So firstly, we're going to allow, obviously, as I said earlier, users to buy and book tickets or to attractions or to activities and tours. So we will get some commission or affiliate commissions from that. So that's one stream. Secondly, in terms of advertising, as I said earlier, being at a certain place at this time, maybe Starbucks is having a promotion, or maybe somebody else is doing something, we'll be able to push deals to our customers or our users. And of course, those we can probably make some money off. And then thirdly, I think it's also just people using the app and then helping us to get more and more people on the platform for that app to be even more useful. Because I think it's really about making it a useful companion. Because if it's useful, the money, I guess, will come in. If it's not, then
you've got data
it's just
on
not going to happen. Yeah.
Tourists. That's valuable to a lot of people, right? The question is like, how big can you scale that, and how in-depth that data is?
Oh, sorry. And one other thing, what we're also thinking of would be interesting, would be because a lot of tourists come here, as Michael said earlier, they may not know or they may not have time to go and buy. So for example, you came here, you were told that Selangor Pewter has a really nice pewter, Rices has a very nice gold dipped orchid, and then there's this really nice barbecue pork, and then there's this Bengawan Solo chiffon cake. So there's a whole bunch of different things that you could buy potentially to bring back home after your trip. And sometimes you just don't have time to do all these things. So we are potentially exploring also curating a bunch of things in which we know from our interactions with customers and with retailers and with our partners, what are the things that Chinese tourists are looking for. And once we establish that, we can create actually packages so that before you even come to Singapore, say, you can purchase this and we can actually send it to your hotel, so that the moment you arrive, you have this little basket of goods just specially curated for you. And so, of course, that will be an interesting experience, and of course, a revenue stream as well. So that's another thing that we're thinking of doing. Yeah.
I like that idea. I mean, if you've been to any airport in Asia and you go to the VAT office, and you just see the lines of Chinese tourists there, they're all, checking in their stuff, or they're picking up their stuff. There's a really interesting market there for even the after travel as well, the post, where they go back to China and they missed, like you say, they missed something, like they didn't pick up that thing, and that could then become like a memory box or something that they could then buy as a memory, or those opportunities are missed, I think, because, like you say, people just focus on the big ticket items. There's a great story. I think it was last year that Alibaba, so I think it was through the Tmall or one of their sort of like platforms in Thailand, gave local durian sellers the opportunity to sell durian to consumers. And these, like, obviously these durian sellers are farmers, so they don't have distribution, and they put them all on this platform, and then they sold 20,000 of these Montong durians in 60 seconds. The whole thing sold out. Can you imagine those kind of sales for a syndicate of farmers? It's just crazy. That's like a year's worth of business in 60 seconds.
$5 million, I think, or something.
I mean, yeah, for those that don't know, durians aren't, like a $5 item. These are expensive. So, that is the pent up demand there? But I want to ask you both really is that, here's the devil's advocate question is that, you guys have got to be nuts surely to start a travel startup in the middle of the pandemic. I'm sure, in years to come, you'll be that case study that said, we did it right in the middle of the time when everybody was looking at this market thinking, well, I don't know, but we started it and we proved it. Why would you do this? Surely there's much easier things to focus on right now, that you could sell to the market. Why do you choose this?
Michael, maybe you try first, and then I also have something I want to say.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think every crisis presents an opportunity. So I think, in most instances, whether it's the Asian crisis or the financial crisis globally, a lot of people wiped out, big boys are wiped out. And guess what? It creates all these opportunities for the small boys. So I think we're just in the right place at the right time. I think the time is just perfect. So in fact, talking about Chinese tourists, last night, Singapore government actually has a new policy to open up the borders to Chinese tourists. So starting from November 6th, Chinese tourists actually can come into Singapore just by taking a swab test, and then don't have to go through the quarantine process. So I think this is the perfect timing, just perfect.
Yeah, that's exciting because it's a swab test now, but in a few months it's going to be an air corridor,
Yeah.
free travel. Okay. So
I-
that's when all your competitors are going to start saying, "Oh, we want to get into this market."
Oh yeah.
You're already there.
Tough tits. Too late.
What about yourself? Yeah, exactly. That's the point. Derek, what about yourself? How do you answer that question? Because I'm sure it comes up in conversation. And, we, as entrepreneurs, we always have these questions in our head, like, am I doing the right thing? Because it can be tough, right? Starting a business, and especially in the middle of a pandemic. How about yourself? Surely you thought this through.
I think to start any business or to be an entrepreneur, you have to be a little bit mad because it's not the well-trodden path, right? I mean, you can just go get a job and do something. I think that's true of every entrepreneur, especially those that succeed and even those that don't, because it's always that curiosity and that desire and that passion that drives you to do something a little bit different or to see the world a little bit different. If I look at there are a whole bunch of, I mean, if you Google it, you probably can find a whole bunch of examples of companies that started in the middle of a whole lot of crises. So Airbnb is one of them. Even Microsoft started during the oil embargo crisis. So a lot of companies started in times which were maybe contrary to to what most people might think. Because if times were good, a lot of people would not want to start something because they're already comfortable doing whatever it is. So it's really also in times of difficulty or challenges in which your mind then starts to think, what else can I do? How else can I make a difference? And what is this new thing that I can maybe change the world just that teeny little bit if I could? So I think what we have here is an opportunity to do something that is different and could add value, and we can make some money out of it. And we have a bunch of people here who are very passionate about China. We're also passionate about travel, and we're also passionate about making the customer journey a smooth one. So I think that's what we have.
Yeah, no, it's a good point to end on. And I look at this story, and for example, if Michael is talking about this opening up of the borders with Chinese customers, and then you're going to see this revenge tourism come to Singapore, and it's going to be it's going to be the default starting point, because it's safe, it's got a good track record on COVID. So, and it's an easy jumping off point for a lot of Chinese tourists. So it's going to be the first place they bring all their revenge and their money. And it's going to be interesting because, like, in time, it seemed obvious, in 2021, it's going to be a boom market potentially. And you're going to see all these startups like yourself, if you're in the game, going to rise with that rising tide. And what people will forget was that you were there before it was like that. And so this is why I think documenting it now is because if we had this conversation next year, it's almost like you're opportunist. Like, you were there, the market's big, it seems like an easy killing to get in as a startup and make money out of it. But everybody, like you talk about Microsoft and Airbnb, everybody forgets about the graveyard shifts that these companies put in. They started when like everybody was looking at it and thinking, you guys are nuts. And the problem is nobody documented that. They weren't out there in those days. It was all kind of off the radar. And then, it's the survivor bias, isn't it? The ones that survived, everybody's, oh, these are great, these are genius. But everybody forgets that they were there before the whole market kicked off, because they had this conviction that this was the right thing to do. I in a conversation with Tony Fernandez from AirAsia, now that we're talking about travel, he said that when he bought the airline, only 6% of Malaysians were flying. And everybody looked at him and thinking, you're nuts. But like you say, you've got to be a little bit crazy because you don't think like everybody. Like you look at 6% and say, that's a very small market. There's no money there. Or you say, that's a 94% opportunity, right? And I think that's how entrepreneurs think differently. So it's very interesting to see your journey. And hopefully this will become a time capsule that we'll have this conversation next year.
Yes.
We'll talk about, remember that revenge tourism thing? Well, remember when it was, remember the pandemic? So we'll have all of that, hopefully. And we'll look back with some sort of smugness and say, yeah, we were there before everybody else was piling into this market.
I mean, hence your platform. I think it's a really good way to document this and to give also startups a voice in which they can actually reach out to people and let people know what they're doing.
Absolutely, it's inspirational as well. That that gives people hope that now's the time not to kind of like retreat and defend, but to go out, because for those that are agile, there are more opportunities. Just like finishing up, what are you guys looking for? Are you fundraising? Are you hiring? Are you looking for partners? And what do you want to get out there? Because I'm sure people in this sector are interested in what you're doing, and you've got a following that's growing. What are your asks at the moment?
All of the above. So
let's start with fundraising. Where are you now? Are you seed funded? Tell us a little bit. Have you got an open round at the moment? So let's talk about that.
Maybe Michael, you'd like to take this question? I think it'd be good.
Yeah. So I mean, we started this thing for almost a year already. So primarily funding from our own pocket. So we're putting our money where our mouth is. So it's very important, I think, for potential investors who are coming on. So shows our commitment, and we're in this thing for the long run. So we just started our pre-A round just this month, in fact. So that's why we're putting together all the investment memos and all the stuff, and those things that our investors require. So I said that we're in the open round. We just started. So anybody else out there who can see the opportunity that we see, most welcome to talk to us. We'll be more than happy to tell you more.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of the kind of conversations you want to have, and like some people just say like anybody with money, or is it
who turns down money?
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
I'm kidding.
But you may say it sometimes helps the other people focus on whether or not it's a relevant conversation to them. So, for example, it may be a corporate partner, it may be an individual who has like 20 years of hospitality experience, whatever it may be. Is there anything specifically that you're looking for?
I think any form of value adding always helps. So whether it's a corporate or somebody, an individual with a lot of experience in this, say, industry. So I think, any part of those will be very helpful for us.
Okay, got it. All right, so we've done the fundraising. You are open to conversation. So we'll share all the details as well. What about all the others? So hiring and partnerships. Tell us a little bit about that. So startups are always hiring, especially here in Singapore. It's tough to get talent. What are you looking for at the moment in particular?
I think we're certainly looking for good engineers to join us. We're also looking for good content people to be part of the team. And at this point, we're also working on partnerships and key sort of relationships. So there's definitely room for people to join us to do business development and partnerships development kind of thing. Okay. So in pretty much these areas are the key ones that we're looking at right now.
Do they have to have experience in hospitality and travel?
I think experience would be useful. But I think what we want more are people with the right attitude, people with passion, people that believe in the vision that we have and the opportunity that's there and want to be part of this journey, especially at the start where it can be rocky and things can change at the last minute or even the first minute. So I think that's what we are more keen on, people with the right sort of mindset. Yeah.
Right, right. Especially now, isn't it? That they understand what they're getting into when they join a startup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun, but you got to understand that there's two sides of it as well. What they're getting into, it's not going to be all like ball pits and slides in the offices. It's going to be a lot of hustle and grind, right?
Oh, we have nice coffee here.
That's what you need to start. As long as you got good coffee, you're on the road. What about the engineers as well? Anything specifically there? Because are you looking for full stack? Are you looking for app developers? Anything? Or is it more of a CTO type role or anything there that you can put out? Because there's lots of options on the market for engineers at the moment.
I think various types, but definitely more mobile centric rather than just web.
Yeah.
So because I think for us, we are definitely mobile first. So the customer experience has to be definitely from a mobile perspective.
Got it.
So yeah.
Okay, good. That's good to know because often, a full stack developer web and a mobile app developer, often two different people, right?
Very different, yes.
Yeah. Okay, good.
I think one of the good thing about working with us is like we're very multicultural. So I think in our team right now we have something like 4 different nationality. So we have officers down in Wuhan. Yes, correct. You didn't hear wrong. It's Wuhan. So that's we have our small dev team over there, and then we have our own Chinese content team in northern China in Changchun, and then of course we have a development team in Indonesia right now. So a mix of different locations and different nationalities. So it's a smallish family with a lots of people with diverse backgrounds, diverse cultures. So I think it's pretty interesting for everybody in terms of joining a new startup with a lot of energy and zest. I think that's something which is quite critical for somebody joining us.
So if I was a biz dev guy in Chiang Mai or an app developer in Bali, would you be interested in hearing from me?
Call me.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I mean, this is the situation we're in now. It's like we don't all, I mean, obviously having an office is one thing, but we don't all need to go to an office, especially in your market. You can reach out to a lot of talent now around Asia because
Awesome. Yeah.
Yes. Welcome.
Call me.
Yeah,
Call
no,
me.
You put
This
it out
number
there.
here.
That's
right.
Yeah, well, the number's coming up now. Get ready for the
Right
reveal.
below.
Well, Michael and Derek, I've really enjoyed speaking to you, gentlemen. I think it was inspirational. I feel like I've got on board a little bit with your journey as well, and I feel like I'm privileged to really be here as a part of an early stage insight into the first couple of chapters of the Smoove journey as well, and excited to see what happens. You are really betting on a very large macro trend in Asia. And it's a trend which really requires a very niche mindset to make it work, which is like somebody who has a number of things. Firstly, who has a very meta view of Asia, like is not just very good at China or very good at Singapore, has had that cross-cultural experience. They didn't just go on holiday to China, they lived there, or they went to Australia and studied there, for example. That's a very, very small group of people, but that's a very, very key boundaryless skill right now. So that's one thing, but also, having that sort of 15, 20 years of experience, which, a 20-year-old startup founder might not have, which is that they understand that this is really about partnerships. And that's where the depth of experience is really going to play off as well. And then you've got on top of that, probably the subset of the subset of the subset in Singapore, which is everything you've said, that this, Singapore is a great gateway for this meta trend. It's the juncture. I mean, it always has been since Lee Kuan Yew positioned it as this sort of juncture between East and West, that is culturally and economically positioned to benefit from this. So, I'm on board officially. So I'm hopefully looking forward to seeing how this is going to pan out next year as well. It's exciting. So
Fantastic.
thank you so much. Do you want to put a shout out to all your fans and followers and anybody that's watched the video as well?
Sure.
Vote for us. Vote, vote,
Vote
vote.
for you. Obviously, with all the details. Vote for Smoove.
Yeah, vote for us. And come over and say hi sometime. Be good.
Yeah, just
We'd like to meet people as well.
You're in which part of Singapore? Because that was off air, but we talked about that. So
We sometimes come into the office at Paya Lebar. But yeah, we can meet anywhere.
excellent. Fantastic. Michael, Derek from Smoove, fantastic having you on the show. Vote now. Details coming up. We'll put it all in the show notes.
Thank you, vote.
Yeah, excellent. Fantastic.
Vote.
All the best, guys. Thank you. Very much.
Thanks, Graham.
Hey, thanks, mate.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Talk to you.
Bye.